Today, I'm going to talk about anger. I was listening to, or watching, more listening to than anything, Unsafe Space today, and they were talking about anger. I came in late in the show and missed the whole context of what was going on, and they were discussing why anger is a negative emotion. And it can be. It definitely can be. It usually is. It's always associated with something negative. I was angry. I was angry because of blah, blah, blah. But it's never easy. Things are never that simple. Because anger is a very complex emotion. It's a very easy one to elicit. But it's also one that's easy to classify as negative, obviously. The point that I had with, it wasn't really a point, it was just an observation that was mulling over in my head. With what they said about anger was that anger with youth is usually impotent. Usually. Right? There's never anything set in stone other than death and taxes, really. But typically, young kids getting angry, they're going to break stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a completely harmless emotion or a harmless state of mind. But when we're talking about the overall effectiveness, anger in youth isn't very effective, for the most part. You get enough angry young people, and yeah, you're going to be able to do something. However, anger is best effective when it's paired with wisdom. You can be angry as a younger kid, and you can go around and you can break stuff. But as you get older, or not necessarily older, but as you gain more wisdom, more understanding of the world, more understanding of the process, and how to focus that anger. Anger and wisdom, that's something completely different. I think it's a lot about self-control, because that's kind of where I think I was going in my mind. Because wisdom comes a lot with, wisdom accompanies self-control, self-confidence. With wise anger comes an understanding of how best to apply that anger to effect the change that you want. You can be running around in your youth and breaking things. Like I said, I'm going to kind of keep from repeating that same phrase. But when you get angry, your anger can hurt. It can cut a lot deeper because you understand the reaction to that anger. You understand the application of that anger. One of my notes that I have, because during the day I actually write down notes of stuff that pops in my head for when I write later. And because I haven't been writing that much, I've compiled a whole bunch of notes. And off the top of my head, I remember one of them saying, economy of anger, or economy of fear. Now I remember. And how fear was unfocused anger. Maybe it was the other way around. I don't know. But it is an interesting idea. You can be afraid of bad drivers like that guy, or you can be angry at him. If you're angry at him, then you're either going to aggressively avoid them, or you're, in some cases, unfortunately, going to engage in road rage. Don't recommend that at all. But wisdom brings ability to regulate that anger. have a negative emotion than a positive thing like love or compassion. Because with anything, if you don't have that wisdom to properly apply it, it can be detrimental to the individual or the organization. You can have compassion, unbridled compassion, and completely institute horrible economic policies based on your desire to help those in need. You can have affection that is focused so much on one person, one object, that it actually becomes a destructive thing. So, in that sense, I think wisdom is the one thing that keeps everything in check, that makes it effective. Sorry, I'm focused on the driving because I got some guy who's angrily riding my tail. It's one of those things that it's a very complex idea, and that's the problem that I think I'm starting to have with a lot of my observations that I have yet to get down on paper or to get on a screen, get on my blog, is that we tend to not have the wisdom because we stop doing things that inspired wisdom or created wisdom. We tweet rather than write. We watch rather than discuss. We form counterpoints rather than attending to the actual argument or the perspective of the other person. We wait for our turn to interject rather than wait for our turn to contribute. And maybe that's where things are really breaking down, is we're lacking wisdom, and we're reinforcing the processes and the mediums that don't really require a lot of wisdom. They require anger. They cater to the most easily manipulated emotions. I mean, that's how you get that things like Twitter going on. That's how you get things like Facebook. That's how you get social media that has spiraled into the monster that it has. You don't want wise people, because wise people have too much to say, or they're not going to be able to react based upon emotion. And that's what drives all this stuff. That's what drives the news cycle. That's what drives it's always driven. That's the other thing, is people sit here and they talk about, the breakdown in media. I've got to tell you, this is nothing new. If you actually read history, if you understand the past, not understand, but try to understand it from the perspective of the people who lived it, as opposed to trying to interpret it based on what we understand it, what our background is, what our perceptions or social norms are. You learn that this is nothing new. This is really nothing new. The Spanish-American War. I'm not saying that it was created just for the sake of selling papers by Pulitzer and Hearst, but it didn't help. It didn't help that something like that could get things going. If you look at the newspaper headlines from the First World War, prior to the First World War, Wilson was against us getting involved in the First World War. He ran on isolationist, or just basically not sending American troops to fight a European battle. But yet the imagery of the Lusitania, the stories, and that's the other thing, is you go back and you read some of these newspapers, you read some of these newspaper articles, you read some of these descriptions that they actually had back then. They are really graphic. They're not evocative. Well, I guess they have to be, because you didn't have the space to put down a lot of pictures or anything like that. So you had to tell the story to make it sink in, and that's the most amazing thing, is the power of the imagination. You know, and watching a lot of the Twilight Zone episodes lately, and I've talked about this, I've written about this before, what made the Twilight Zone so fascinating is that it didn't have to show you. It told you and let you draw your own conclusions. Let your mind, your imagination, fill in the blanks. Some of the episodes of the Twilight Zone are disconcertingly scary, and they don't show any gore. It's the suggested. It's the implied. It's the what's not said. So you go back, you think about all these news stories back then, and that's how they got you involved. That's how they drew that emotion out. It wasn't through pictures, it was through graphic descriptions. So this is really nothing new. This whole phenomenon with the news, this whole appealing to emotions. The only thing that's really new is the fact that we haven't learned a damn thing. And it's not the print media, it's not television, it's not the internet, it's not YouTube, it's not anything, it's not the media or the medium. It's us. It always has been. We've always been susceptible to it. The only difference is now we're sitting here going, things are happening way too fast. And I've hinted at this before in maybe Facebook post or whatever, but we're undergoing a social evolution. And what's really hurting us is that this evolution is happening way too fast for us to be able to react. You need time. You need time and distance. Not distance, but you need time to process everything. And we don't have that time. We're not given that time. And as communications gets better and better and better, global communications, that time span is dropping down drastically. You know, something will happen across the world and we're instantly mad. Whereas before, you would have to wait till the ships crossed the ocean, or the telegraph operator processed it, gave it to a reporter, they interpreted, etc., etc. There was a lag in time. And we don't have that time. So we're being forced to change. We're being forced to accept change. We're being forced to react to a change that it's inevitable. Change is inevitable with people. It's just the only thing that's different is the time scale. So it goes back to wisdom. Wisdom isn't something that's instantaneous. It's something that comes over time. And that's not what we have. We have everything to make time. We have everything to save time. But we've lost that time in the process. Food for thought. Hopefully you enjoy, and hopefully you have a good weekend.